6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. We have commit and we have liftoff at 2:13. Pounds of thrust, and it has cleared the tower.
Prepare yourself for a world of seriousness. This is
Welcome one, welcome all. Conley here with the Science Nights in the morning. Yes, we got Dr. Sean Graham all the way from down under. We have Tom Schiller here in the studio as well. And back by popular demand, the people were outside. They were protesting. They had the signs out. They had the India flags waving. Yeah, Anirban.
Bring back Anirban.
Yeah, and here he is. Here's the man himself, Anirban Bhattacharjee. What's up, man?
Nothing much. What's up with you?
No, I'm doing good, man.
Doing good. Yeah, good. I heard it's been hot here.
Yeah, it's actually cooler than it's been.
Yeah,
It's actually cooler. Talking about the weather right when he comes back from India.
I thought it would be nice here.
Yeah, we met up in Dallas.
Very positive attitude, Anirban. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I have to keep it up.
Very optimistic.
I mean, I landed back in India in May when it was like over hundreds, right? Rain happens, and I'm like, okay, it's cooled down a bit. Now I got to go back, and back in August, I'm thinking, well, it'd be nice there. So I land in Dallas. It's 100 degrees in the evening, and it's just like so much fun.
Yeah, but then we got to go see Metallica.
That was fun. That was actually fun.
Yeah, little known band.
Really, really tiny band.
They used to be a garage band, I think.
Yes.
They got kind of
very indie.
Yeah, very indie.
Very indie.
I think what did we decide? Like 70-something thousand people when the AT&T Stadium.
Yes, around 70,000 people for sure.
Yeah. Okay. It's like a wedding, like a little bit bigger wedding.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, we have a good show for y'all today. We're going to be talking about something that is very historic, and especially for, we're celebrating Anirban's return, a monumental achievement for India and the world, really.
Yeah,
because they have an unmanned rover.
Yeah,
spacecraft.
Rover. Yeah. We have an unmanned rover, but as India goes is the fourth nation, so that makes us kind of a little bit happy.
So U.S., Russia, China.
Not Russia.
They crashed.
I mean USSR.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you have to make that
important distinction.
Yeah, USSR. So you want to make that distinction there.
Yeah.
USA, USSR, and China. Then India gets to go up there. So
very cool.
Yeah. So it's the fourth nation up there. So and the first nation to land in the South Pole. So the lunar South Pole. So so that makes this mission in itself unique.
What is the mission called?
Chandrayaan. So basically, it's a vehicle going to the moon because we call moon the Chandra. So
the Channeler.
Chandra.
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 Chandra. Yeah.
Chandra.
Yeah.
That's a fire goddess, isn't it? In Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it is.
Interesting.
Me and
Let's not get on that. Let's not get on that.
Are like
You'll have to put the dork filter on our voices.
Sean,
I love how Anirban, you can totally, when he says interesting, he doesn't think it's interesting when he says it that way.
So they could have been really creative with what they named this rover, but they just named it.
Yeah, vehicle to the moon.
Moon vehicle.
Moon vehicle, yeah.
Vehicle.
Yeah, the entire mission is called Moon Program, like Moon Vehicle Program. Like you have the Artemis program, right, to get the human beings on moon back again. So this is the Chandrayaan program, which pretty much wants to do the same thing.
So I've never heard of NASA for India. Like what kind of program do they have?
ISRO. ISRO, Indian Space Rocket Organization.
ISRO.
Yeah, Space Research Organization.
Okay, and that's a government-funded program?
Yeah, completely government funded.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, and so why did they want to go up there? Like, what was the purpose? What's the reason?
It's kind of just to, we already mean, why does anyone want to go up to the moon, right? So
Strike oil, baby.
Buzz Aldrin left his keys up there.
yeah. I mean, we already have one of the things that is not really very well known. We launch a lot of satellites, not just, this is very specific. We launch a lot of communication satellites and a lot of weather satellites, which are used we rent them out. India rents them out. So that's a money-making thing for India. So this is just an extension of that program, which we used to go up and this is this one is the third one that has gone up. The first one just went to the moon, kind of orbited around. Second one was supposed to land, make a soft landing, did not, crashed. So this is the third one they have sent up there.
So is there I don't know, a treaty or what? How does government work on the moon? Because it has to be international, right?
Yeah, you have the 2020 Artemis Accords also, which India is a part of. So that's kind of governs the entire thing, how we are going to build collaborations going to the moon and stuff. So that's kind of, I don't know the entire how the accords are about. So that's not something I studied up.
So Billy Bob couldn't build a rocket in his backyard and land on the moon.
Well, Elon Musk is trying to build one. I mean, if you want to think of him as Billy Bob or Jeff Bezos. So they are trying to do that. India has its own startup companies trying to build private rockets. So they're all trying to do that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know. I'll bet it's more of the Wild West than other things. So if Billy Bob wanted to go set up in Antarctica and do whatever he pleased, he could not. There are international treaties. It's very well governed. It's divvied up among different countries, how many people get to come and go. Some countries are not signatories to that, and Australia, for example, still kind of claims part of Antarctica, even though they don't really. It doesn't belong to them. But they claim it anyway because one of their guys got down there and discovered part of it. But I think space and the moon is kind of wide open. I think there's probably some little stuff that people have agreed to, but it's kind of there for the taking. India is kind of demonstrating that.
Yeah,
they're hey, no one's been to the South Pole. Let's go.
Yeah, and as nations go, it's not a big problem. I think the only thing, if you're a private company, you will need to have clearance from the government to launch your spacecraft, and that's the only thing you'll need. I don't think there's anything or any government out there, right? Like a democratic government is going to prevent a private corporation from sending launching a vehicle out into space. I mean, you need to have the technology and everything. Those are highly classified engines everybody will be using. So you want to make sure about that one. So
the South Pole, why is that significant? Why are we shooting for the
water?
South
We
Pole?
talked about this. I don't think Sean remembers, right? Sean, we talked about South Pole is a place where you have ice with water, water ice, and we can have methane ice and all those stuff. So that is a part where it's in the dark, a lot of craters, so a lot of dark spaces, which means the sun doesn't reach there. So the temperature is really low, so the water will be there.
Okay.
And we have found evidence of water and ice, so we just need to find it exactly where it is located. And South Pole is where it is supposed to be located. We need to find the place. Now the question,
Anirban, it'd be the same on the North Pole, right?
I think the North Pole has some kind of a tilt, and I think that's it has more. South Pole is covered mostly in darkness, and I think that and that's the reason they wanted to land there.
Interesting.
And that's where they have detected the water also mostly. So yeah,
our focus has been on the North Pole. That's apparently where we're going to be sending the Artemis astronauts, right?
Not North Pole, rather northern hemisphere of that, more closer to the equator, which is less cratered. Most of the landings have been near the equator of Moon's equator.
Right, but in the future Artemis missions, where we haven't landed a person yet, I think they're shooting for the North Pole to check out those craters that it would be shadowed. Yeah. Whereas it's interesting, the Indians have gone the other direction, and now the rover, they sent a rover?
Yes.
Is there a critter driving around down there right now?
Yeah. So it's a great thing that we are doing it today. So what is happening is, so we have a rover. It went 100 meters out of the Chandrayaan and is there. So it's went and moved around. And very interestingly, for how the moon is going around the Earth, right? It's circling around the Earth. It takes around 28 days to go around it. So that now it's going to enter into the phase for 14 days. It's going to go. The South Pole is not going to receive any light from the sun. So it's going to go into sleep mode.
So what does that mean when it has a tilt? Like, it's similar to Earth in that, the axis kind of shifts and it's wobbly.
It spins on its axis, so it has a tilt. So in that regard, so everything that will spin will have an axis because you are spinning, right?
Sure, right.
So it's got that. So in this case, it means that the moon, right, 28 days, right? When you see the new moon, basically, what you're seeing is the side of the moon that is not facing the sun, right?
Right.
And when it comes around, it is the same side that will be facing you, but that is illuminated by the light.
Right.
So now it's kind of going around, so the South Pole is inclined in a way it will not receive any light as it's going around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's
And
what
that's why eclipses are so awesome.
Yeah.
Because, whenever,
it
passes.
perfectly aligns itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what's so cool about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. So
And the wobble is not like a seasonal thing. The wobble is a thing that happens over like tens of thousands of years.
You have to, is a wobble, you're talking about the top, like if you have a top which rotates, right? That wobble of a top, that is basically, if you're talking, yes, that's called precession. Earth does that too over 26,000 years. I do not know how much time the moon takes, but yeah, if it should have a wobble. So
is this rover up there collecting data as we speak right now?
It was, but as I said, right now it's going into the shadow, so it won't receive the solar power, so it's going to go into the sleep mode for 2 weeks, and hopefully it wakes up after 2 weeks. So yeah,
so they've got a real opportunity to beat us to figure out whether there's water ice in those craters.
Yeah, if it wakes up after 2 weeks, so we have to hold our breath for 2 weeks now.
Yeah. That's pretty cool because all of the water ice in the craters is all kind of based on,
observation from
sort
space.
of circumstantial evidence and some observations, but nobody's been down there to make a tumbler, But this rover could take a sample and confirm that before we get there, which would be helpful for us because ultimately we want to get there and use the water.
That's exactly the reason.
So it's no skin off our teeth if they find that and just help confirm
where
once
the
again,
water is.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Thomas?
I was going to ask you sort of an engineering question. You may or may not know the answer, but how do they deal with the extreme cold? Because mechanical equipment can get kind of fussy if it's freezing.
I think the way there's a definite shielding there, and I think there might be. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into the specification of what is the vehicle inside. I am kind of a little bit taking a kind of like an idea what people does. There might be some kind of a radioactive something in there.
Okay.
Which would half decay and provide the heat, like a release capsule, warm capsule. That's the way it can heat. That's what there is there in the Voyager missions also. Like little bit of radioactive, which keeps the heat, like little bit of power.
Yeah.
So,
do you know an engineer we could call and ask?
I mean, not NASA, but I guess we can find out. So I don't know exactly. I'm not friends with any of them. So
you're not friends with any engineers?
I mean, yes, I'm friends with any engineers, but not the ones that are involved in this mission. Okay. So
that'd be cool to reach out to them. Honestly, I think I
bet they had to engineer the SHIT out of the thing.
Yeah. Well, I heard that. Well, I've not heard, but I read. There's an article out there. Washington Post published it about a lot of the scientists that contributed to this. Very underfunded, and they didn't have a lot of funds.
I mean, underfunded is in the sense it's India, right? It doesn't have resources. Compared to India, that would be the case, underfunded, but it's just making things for cheap. So, but it works.
I mean, the scientists work well below like what a normal scientist would.
that is not the right thing. Scientists are actually paid a lot So that is not the way. It's a federal job, so it's a federal salary. So they are getting really well. I mean, they're not going to get, in the sense, I would not say, okay, so let's compare. If you're going to work for something like an Amazon, right?
Mm-hmm.
They might, and you're a really good scientist, right? They will pay you like 150K or something like that. You take the same federal job, they're going to pay you like 80, 90K. But benefits and everything come along, right? Now, also you have to understand each of these scientists are actually government officers. So they come with pensions and everything. So there's a lot of other things that you're coming into play. They're not really like, this is not poor people. These are not poor people by any means that are working there. Even the junior scientists, people get in. So
How many rupees equal $1 US?
81?
81 rupees.
Yeah. So that
What does a rupee look like? Is it like? Do you have one?
I don't have a coin, but
Oh my gosh, he's pulling out his wallet right now, and he's opening up his wallet. He's gonna show. He's gonna flash.
Our listeners are just going to absolutely love this segment.
This is awesome. Oh my God! Yes, there's Gandhi on it. Gandhi's so cool. It's Ben Kingsley. Actually, is it Gandhi or Ben Kingsley?
It's Gandhi.
Okay.
Ben Kingsley is interestingly is half Indian.
Oh yeah, no, he's a great actor, Indian actor. This is 100 Reserve Bank of India, guaranteed by the central government. 100. It says 100.
Conley's going to read the
rupees. Wow, and it says, "I promise."
At least do some.
I promise to pay the bearer the sum of.
I think we should introduce this as a new segment to every one of our shows. We should read a $1 bill from
This is
a
so
different
cool,
country.
though.
What we should do is now just slowly go away from this and talk about how this is so different from the U.S. currency and what does that I mean.
Yeah.
Well, I do know now that people in India get paid.
Look at the
actual
numerology
money.
involved in the dollar.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So coming back to that, Thomas, it will be radioactive most probably to bring it back.
Okay,
up.
keep it warm.
Yeah, keep it warm. And the only way I don't think there's any other way, right? It's going to be 2 weeks out in the cold where the temperatures are going to be minus 250 degrees below 0 degrees Celsius, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would be I think the 0 degrees Fahrenheit, what is the absolute zero in Kelvin, Fahrenheit? It's minus 430 or something like that.
If only we had a physicist.
I mean, yeah, go ahead. That's what I had to say. Yeah.
Okay, so India's got this rover. It's going to sleep for 2 weeks and wake up. How is it going to confirm whether or not there's water ice? Does it have like a spectrometer on it?
Yeah, it has a spectrometer on it.
Okay.
So it has a spectrometer. It has a seismometer, and which was very interesting. It already there was a vibration, which was not normal. So it picked it up. So now they're thinking, well, is it a boulder that we dislodged, or is it just went over a bump, or is it an actual moonquake that happened?
Cool.
So that's what they're trying to figure out. So those are things, and certain things which we already knew, like there has already been confirmed reports of sulfur back in 70s and 80s in Moon. So they confirmed sulfur is also there in South Pole and things like that.
Is it going to collect physical samples?
There is a laser spectrometry out there, which is you shoot a beam of laser into the ground and it will vaporize it. So it will test that vapor kind of thing.
Like a laser ablation.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So that's up there. So yeah.
Cool.
So that's a program, and so that's happening. So we should be able to. This 2 weeks comes in, and so we will see after this what happens.
I bet there's some scientists over there who are sweating in their boots for 2 weeks.
I am very sure. I am. This is the reason I think everybody put the media really hyped up about just the landing, which is very, very hard thing to do, and to get the rover out and get it moving as soon as possible, because they knew that right after 3 days, this 2 week period is coming in.
So do you know why they timed it like that? Why not send it up a little bit early so it could just go straight away into collecting data?
Well, they already started collecting data in 3 days, right?
But I mean, like why didn't they land it 2 weeks ago?
Oh, I think it has to do with some kind of orbital maneuver, like the positioning. Because what
Okay.
India did was they did that slingshot thing multiple times to save fuel,
Yeah.
using the kind of like going around the Earth multiple times. So each time it went around, it gained more energy and saved fuel on that. So
Okay.
and then once it reached kind of really went far away in its swing, it just gave itself a little bit of extra energy by burning its fuel and just went towards the moon. So
Yeah.
it needed to be perfectly aligned for it to
Okay.
do that maneuver.
Now, Anirban,
Yeah.
having just gotten back from India, what's the vibe in India? Are people going bananas there? Was it all over, Times Square in Delhi, like on the ticker? Are your friends going nuts and posting stuff on their social media? What's going on? Are they happy about this?
Yeah, it was pretty much all over, kind of all the big news channels, and everyone covered it. It was like live broadcasted. Everybody followed it. And it was a pretty big deal because, first of all, the landing in itself, we didn't really land a soft landing before this. So this was the first thing we are landing, and it was always said we are going to be the first people on the South Pole. So people were really stoked and really excited about it. So
That's awesome. And did you witness any choreographed dancing in the street?
I wish I did.
I mean, that's normal. That's what I think, whenever.
Our PM speech was choreographed. I think that was pretty close enough. I got.
Well, very nice.
And Anirban, India had crashed a lander on before, and so there's a bit of a kind of a letdown, and then now this must be just pure euphoria.
Yeah,
is that what's going on?
Yeah, especially with the scientists and everybody, because I think that is why last time it didn't advertise itself like very much. The second mission when crashed it, so they didn't advertise it this much. But this time, and especially they're having the like a rover out there, so this made it even more advanced and even more exciting.
And we should point out, I guess not on the moon, but I was just thinking of like all these crashes, and people can kind of tend to sneer and turn their nose up at these crash. I think Russia, right? Mm-hmm. Russia just crashed on the moon like the same week that you guys pulled off a landing, which must tickle you to death. It certainly tickles me to hear that. But then everybody is at a failed mission, right? We crashed something on Mars. Russians crashed all the time. The Soviets crashed. China's crashed. So, to get one to work is pretty spectacular. But I think a failed mission is going to start to look less and less like a failure in the future. So everybody has failed a little bit, and now everybody seems to have gotten something right, and so now the ball is really rolling.
And you have to understand, like the people always forget the people died when the first high altitude flight came along. The early precursors to space missions, like before Yuri Gagarin went up in space, those pilots, just pilots died going up those levels. They died just going up to the stratosphere heights. And people kept on dying after Yuri Gagarin, and everybody, even American astronauts have died, right? In 1982, the Challenger mission and everything. People have kept on dying. It's not like people don't die up there. So it's and
it's still really risky business. I'm waiting for. I hate to say this. I'm very pessimistic, but I'm waiting for the first commercial failure, and I'll just leave it at that. I was really worried. William Shatner went up into space, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, come on, this can't be. Don't let the first commercial explosion be, Captain Kirk going up and blowing up. So that's bound to happen. It's going to happen. And it's like, who's going to be the famous person? Well, I guess we could already, they did the Titanic submarine voyage with a bunch of rich folks who paid for that ride, and it didn't work out.
I hope it is not like that.
If you think about the age of exploration, they would send entire, Spanish galleons full of people to go set up a colony, and nobody would come back. Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of at the cusp of that for space exploration, and we're going to break some eggs before we make some omelets.
That really is a beautiful kind of just depiction when you think about the Spanish galleons and people going out to frontier, going out to the frontier. They're exploring and they're sacrificing themselves in the name of exploration, right? And we're kind of the same way too. And like you say, it takes a couple eggs to be cracked. Thank God for them. And I'm sure they're up in the cosmos, probably coming back down. They might still be here, spiritually somewhere, like reincarnation style, They're
vaporized pieces of carbon ice.
No, man. A little more spiritual than that, buddy. Come on, let's go.
They're sparkly pieces of carbon ice.
Well, it could have come down with the rain, and it could have gone back into the soil.
There you go.
Yeah, and then we could have.
Their viscera came back to Earth and fertilized the soil.
People we have a very short memory as a collective, as a species, because you also forgot to mention North Pole and South Pole expeditions.
Yeah.
So many people died, right? That's a big thing. Like
Everest.
Everest
Everest is littered with frozen dead people who are probably reincarnated into the bar-headed geese that fly over Everest every year.
Could
right,
be.
There we go. You never know.
Hey, Anirban.
Yes.
So Conley asked a really interesting question towards the top of the show, and there's really fun ways to answer it. He said, "Why did you go?" And it's almost like it's a flippant thing to say. I'm sure he didn't intend for it to be flippant, but he's kind of like, well, America's already been to the moon, and the Soviets and the China. Why India? And the other part of that answer is interesting because the people who can get to the moon all have nuclear weapons, right? And they can all fly those nuclear weapons on the head of a big ass rocket. Mm-hmm. They can either take a rover to the moon or take a nuclear weapon up your ass. Yeah. And so that's, if you read The Right Stuff, a great book, great movie, and that's what it's all about. It's all about the space race, the early moon missions, it's actually, I guess, the Mercury missions. It was all just a proxy demonstration of rocket capability between the Soviets and the U.S. It was like the old combat days between like the Spartans and Greeks or something, where they would just nominate their greatest warrior, and instead of all hacking each other to death, they would send, Hercules versus Achilles and decide the fate of the nation state based on single man combat. And the author of The Right Stuff, Thomas Wolfe, blanking on his name, it just beautifully summed up the space race as a single man combat metaphor. And here we are again with India participating, with China participating. And it's incredible that we've gone from where there were two superpowers, doing this space race, to now having this interesting kind of postmodern multinational competition for the future.
No, man. No, that's interesting. It is Hector versus Achilles. Hector of Troy versus Achilles of
whatever.
They're all
Greece,
dead.
but still.
No, I was going to bring up another interesting point when you bring that up, right? Like, remember the time when Yuri Gagarin had already walked on the surface, walked outside space and did that spacewalk and thing, right? And at that point, the mood in the United States, because I was just reading up a completely separate, very by fantasy of mine, is like, why don't we take all the nukes and just blow up the moon? Like with the moon, all the nukes we have, what would happen, right? What could we achieve? So my thing is you could have a huge amount of dust going up. This is my vision. You have the dust going up, then you could trap the heat and see what happens underneath. So that's this is a science fiction thing that I'm thinking of. So, you have a question, Sean?
Well, Isaac Asimov said that the moon shouldn't exist.
So
the fact that it's there is an anomaly.
No. So now, So I was just looking this thing up. I just had a random thought, but
Is that what you were looking up on your phone while I was talking about profound multinational?
No, what I was actually looking up was then when I was looking up an idea, what would happen when I have somebody implemented that crazy idea. Turns out, after Yuri Gagarin had did a spacewalk, the mood in the United States Army and everything was, well, Russians are most probably going to reach the moon. So how could we prevent this if they get there or something of that sort? So they thought about how we nuke the moon when they reach there.
So this was an actual thought that the U.S. government had?
U.S. government
Now it's all making sense.
So
that's interesting. So
it's called a project.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that there wasn't more. There may have been some monkeying around. I'm surprised. It was interesting though with the space race. It's almost like there was it was accepted that there would be fair play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There could have been monkeying around. There could have been, they could have gone in and threw spanners in the works and tried to, and maybe there were probably some secrets stolen and whatnot. But it seems like with the space race, it was almost fairly neutral. And that's what's so interesting about it. It was kind of agreed that rather than blow each other up with nuclear weapons, we're going to have this competition.
Sort of like
which is pretty interesting.
But
that's kind of what I was
like
thinking
the Olympics.
too.
Yeah, it's understood that it's gentleman's sport.
But there was still a study commission, and there's an actual report and everything out there. So you can look it up. It's called Project A119. I just had to look up that number.
No, I've heard of A119 actually.
So
but there's no telling.
But it was like a kind of hypothetical type discussion.
I mean, what happened was basically then as it went through was Kennedy gets to power. Yeah. And the focus completely changes, and the idea is we were going to land the men on moon. That's it. That's when the vision changes and everything.
Right, and then Lyndon killed him, and then...
And the bullet really bent, right? It really had that curve.
Defying all the physics.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lyndon.
Yeah, I bet the USSR had some nutty stuff cooked up, too.
Yeah.
They probably had some nukes aimed at the moon, too.
Well, one of the kind of rumors is that their biological weapons research was miles ahead of ours, where we concentrated on nuclear weapons and delivery and all of that. They were cooking up all kinds of bugs, which is kind of a close regard. Well, they kept it a secret, even though they'd signed on to a treaty saying that they would not play with biological weapons. But then it's weird. At the same time, it's just like our government. Our government, we had different parts of our government doing crazy, weird, scary things while the other side didn't even know about it. Mm-hmm. But there's an example in the Cold War where the Soviet Union and America got along and collaborated, and that was the eradication of smallpox.
Mm-hmm.
The two superpowers came together for that.
Polio too?
And, yeah.
They tried for polio also, yeah.
One of the things, let's get back to India on the moon. One of the things this reminds me of, if you guys were humongous nerds like me, you watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, mm-hmm. and you were blown away, and it became your favorite movie of all time, and you had no idea what any of it meant. And so you went and read Arthur C. Clarke's movie, like his book, based on the movie,
right?
Which, the screenplay was based on, which kind of helps spoon feed you a little bit about what the hell is going on in like the last Stargate sequence. And then you were still hungry and you watched 2010, right? And then you read that book. And if you were a super Arthur C. Clarke nerd, you read 2061 Odyssey 3. And that sucked so much that you never bothered to read 3001 the Final Odyssey. But there could be some listeners out there who are nerdy enough to have gone through all four of those books. But 2061 is set in kind of a little bit more in the future. And it's pretty crazy because Arthur C. Clarke, for a while there, because of 2010, he lost some street cred, right? Because 2001, he nailed what like the initial stages of space exploration would be like, even though he missed the date, right? Because we're set in a world that's kind of like 2001.
We have very high ambitions of how government worked too. Like,
Right.
I mean,
So-
he set the bar very
Yeah.
high for how government interacts and works.
Yeah. But like, a hotel orbiting the moon, I mean, that's not far away. There's things like, and of course, the movie got like iPads that predicted all this stuff. In 2010, he took a big steaming poop because he had the Soviet Union still existing in 2010. But now we're back into a Cold War with Russia.
Yeah.
He nailed it. It's just not called the Soviet Union anymore. Right. So his street cred is blowing up again, Arthur C. Clarke. And in 2061, he's got like multiple nation states with space programs exploring and industry and private individuals financing rockets to go up into space. And he's got it again. Arthur C. Clarke called it. And so like India having like, when you read 2061 back in 1999, whenever I would have read it, it just seemed preposterous, the idea that South Africa would have a space program or that India or China would have any kind of a space program. And here we are today, and all of it's there.
That's so true. Like, I love 2001. I have a poster in the studio here. When you think about that, yeah, I mean,
We're there.
India. There we go. Good
Yeah.
job, India.
And we've got a scary ass artificial intelligence developing too.
That could be
yeah.
its own consciousness.
Which
Yeah.
is very interesting. You do say that artificial engineering, right? I asked Dali to show me an image of very ugly and smelly looking Margot Robbie, and it didn't show me one. So obviously that's not possible.
It's
Even
censoring.
it's not possible.
Well, we all
it's-
know it's impossible for Margot Robbie to be ugly.
Dolly is trash. Stable diffusion.
Wait,
is
what?
what's out
You
when it
asked
comes to
AI to generate an Indian Margot Robbie? Is that
No,
what
no,
you said?
an ugly and smelly Margot Robbie.
An ugly and
So an
smelly.
Indian-
I thought you said an Indian Margot Robbie, which I want to see. I
AI didn't show.
I know there exists in this world a Indian Julia Roberts.
It's highly possible.
I went to school with her,
Okay.
and I could tell you her name, but
No, please.
we're
don't.
so famous now that
Yeah,
it'd be
we
embarrassing if
don't
people
want
would like
to-
She's
stalk
probably
her.
listening right
Yes.
now.
So-
Yeah.
I better not mention her name.
When you're talking and when you said one thing I forgot to mention, you're talking about the Artemis Accords and stuff like that. So India and Japan have a joint collaboration of sending like some kind of a manned space mission kind of stuff. That's what the collaboration is going to mean.
India and Japan?
India and Japan. So there's that. I mean, they're never going to collaborate with China. So that's out of the question.
Why not?
They're not, because they're both like trying to dominate each other in the economic fields. So
Yeah, I guess
But isn't China and India and a few more countries? What is that
BRICS.
interesting economic pact?
BRICS. BRICS.
BRICS.
Yeah, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So it's an economic kind
Boom.
of, yeah. So that's
So why not China and India swapping
it's
some?
bordering territories, and also China supports Pakistan and stuff like that. So there is a lot of political issues and things like that.
But here they are hanging out in that very interesting economic pact that only Arthur C. Clarke could have conceived of.
I know.
And he would have been laughed out of the room 40 years ago, and here they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting.
Let's see what
That is
happens.
interesting.
so.
Because they're playing both sides of the coin almost, it seems like.
India seems to be doing that. I love this because India, of all those countries in that pact, which BRICS, what is it?
Yeah, BRICS. BRICS.
So
yeah.
of all the countries in that, the most interesting to me is India, the one that seems to be doing its own thing for its own reasons, right? You can kind of guess what China's up to, Russia, South Africa, Brazil. You can, if you think about it, you can kind of see their motivations. But India plays everybody. They accept aid and work with the United States. They have refused to say a bad thing about Putin and his move into Ukraine, even though they share this border with China. They're kind of enemies of China. They're here playing, with China a little bit economically. It seems like the only country that India absolutely hates is Pakistan. Other than that, you can they'll play ball with anybody.
I don't really know much about politics to even comment, but okay, I'll go with that. Let's go with that.
They'll certainly call anybody.
Yeah.
So feel free to talk about it, because that's what the show is about.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Pakistan is understandable. 3-war spot. I mean, they lost 3 wars, so that's fine. That's okay. I mean, I don't really care. I wish we could just not have them as a neighbor, so we could deviate all that money that we are spending on the border to other things, better things, and we could have done much better. Like, we are having an army in places which we wouldn't need to have if Pakistan wasn't there at the border.
Have you ever thought of building a wall?
They've got the Himalaya.
I mean, that's on the other side.
I
We
guess so,
do have a desert in between, but wall. Interesting. Why has nobody ever thought of that?
Nobody's ever thought of it. It's a genius idea.
Only Chinese people have managed to build that successfully.
Yeah.
So I want to get back to the
Yeah.
to the rover if we could, because we haven't really, and I think maybe you guys did a show without me about maybe populating the moon or something, but I'm going to ask that question. So the end game to all this presumably is to find water that could be used for a colony on the moon.
Yes, that is the reason everybody wants the South Pole thing, is because if you can find water in there, then bang, you have fuel and you have water.
Yeah.
And water for life. That's it. And
Now, when you start looking at it that way too, and I might be presuming too much, but India and China especially have issue with overpopulation, right?
yeah.
So could that be a big motivator, a big push for a country like India to pursue colonization of the moon?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think that's that's immediate future. I don't think that's even close to
Yeah, okay.
possible. Yeah, that's. I mean, we haven't even found water. First, we need to find water. Then we have to send people up to the moon. Then we have to make a working shelter up there.
Yeah.
It's like a 100-year project, I think.
You think 100 years?
Well,
It
100
seems to
years
me
is
like
short.
Well, when I think about it, it's like, I mean, we have the technology, I feel, to accomplish that, and all we need is water. Like, we have the ability to send people up there. This is probably when people are going to die, unfortunately, but we have the ability to build, to construct structures on the moon, and if we have water, we have everything we need to grow crops.
I mean, at the first, you have to send. What you're forgetting is we have to send the raw material, the initial material we have, and that will take a huge amount of money, because the India was able to do this thing very cheaply. Was one of the main reasons that we used a very low amount of fuel, because we kept on circling the Earth multiple times, and there is a calculation for every kilogram of fuel you put in or every kilogram you make the spacecraft heavier, you add a cost of like $10,000 or $100,000 to that entire spacecraft. So there's a huge thing. So
so if you load it down with tons of building
yeah,
material
I mean,
or
you
whatever,
can. I mean, then the fuel amount increases, which immediately raises the price, and then you have to justify it to whichever government has to justify it to people when there's a huge chance of the entire spacecraft blowing up.
Well,
So-
isn't an exponential factor for growth on the moon something called helium-3? And wouldn't that be like something that could cause like an explosion of prosperity on the
Well,
moon?
you have to extract it, right?
Right.
Yeah, so to extract it, you need to send the machine up there.
Okay, so explain to the listeners what helium-3 is and why it's valuable.
I don't know about the valuable part that much because I don't know much about it. But helium-3 is is an isotope of helium, which is the second element on the periodic table, and it is usually a superconductor, which means you can easily pass electricity and things like that. And I guess it works in MRIs and things like that. But I don't know about the fuel implication of it. But what I do know for sure is water is what they're looking for to generate fuel on Moon. That's what they want to do, because you can have solar power, and using that solar power, you can break down the water into oxygen and hydrogen. So using that, what you do is you can use that to burn it back to create the fuel, which is some kind of a hydrazine or something like that. So you burn the hydrogen.
So infinite energy.
Not really infinite. Of course, you're going to almost. Yeah, renewable.
Renewable.
Yeah, renewable.
What Anirban's getting at, though, is to get all the facilities up there, you have that huge problem of getting heavy equipment off of Earth, which is, the American space program and Elon Musk have two of the largest rockets ever devised right now. Right, the ones for the Artemis program are the biggest ones ever, and the one that Elon Musk just blew up, which was apparently a success, is even bigger. It's the biggest one, and it hasn't been successful yet. But those two, between the two of them, will be the biggest ever. And the whole idea for those is to lift heavy stuff plus people, and eventually get some sort of call it a moon base set up.
And the part about that, what the Elon Musk is also trying to do, and also, I don't know about NASA part, but one of the main things, his selling point is that huge lift up, those side boosters and everything you see, which helps to lift the rocket up and then fall away. What he's trying to do is they won't just randomly fall away. They will come back.
Yeah,
so that we can recycle them over and over again. So that would save the cost. So
it's still expensive.
Yeah.
But then once you're at the moon, once you've got that set up and you're extracting water to use as fuel, then going any farther is way easier.
Yes.
And that's the whole point. You have smaller rockets that can just hop off the moon, and that's nothing because the gravity is nothing. And you got practically limitless fuel because it's all full of water and you're using the water for fuel. And so the next phase is where it's going to get a hell of a lot easier. But the moon base is the first step. That's going to be a pain in the ass. It can take a long time. For a permanent colony on the moon, that's your 100-year project. A moon base is happening right now. They're starting work getting there now.
Moon colony, if you don't want it to be self-sustaining, then it's pretty easy. Like, it's 6 or 7 days to get to moon. So you could set it up, the base. You could have like a pressurized container set up just to get the basic functioning. Like, you could have like 4 or 5 people set up out there.
It'd be like the Martian.
It would be even more stripped down version of Martian. I mean, think of that. Like, we did go to the moon, right? We did go to the moon. Aldrin and Neil Armstrong did spend time there on the moon.
Yeah, there was a moon base. They were there for 8 hours or something.
So there was a base. You can do that. Even now with these little things. It wouldn't just be for long period of time. And so to do that for long, you have to do incremental. You have to do a lots of mission, supplying lots of little parts, and keep going at it. Like, it has to be a combined. I don't think one single nation would be able to do that. And
probably it's going to have to turn a profit at some point for any of this to work as well. So they're going to have to bring valuable stuff back from the moon, which is probably easier than getting it up there in the first place, because you can just kind of drop it.
And I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I've read a few articles about helium-3 being pretty valuable.
Yeah, helium-3 I've heard, and then there's a ton of really metal material that is not like titanium, I think, is common as dirt iridium up there, and it's
iridium.
Iridium,
Oh wow!
And stuff like that. One of the first things I can guarantee you, even before moon base, what people will try to do is mine the asteroids.
Right.
That's what they would try to do.
Get the asteroid to hit the moon, and then mine them, and then ship it back to Earth.
I wasn't just thinking because even before Elon Musk came to the picture, there was this organization that happened, or a think tank with Spielberg, Google's chairman Alexei Brin, and people like that, who wanted to just mine the asteroids. They had a entire thought process set up. And if you read old trashy 1950s and 60s sci-fi novels, they would have this minor kind of quality going around it.
Arthur C. Clarke again.
Yeah.
So he envisioned that they would find huge stockpiles of diamonds on some of the outer worlds in the solar system, including a mountain on Europa that was a diamond, a giant solid diamond. And so, there could be huge diamonds laying around on the moon, and That's pretty valuable stuff. So Arthur C. Clarke, he called it.
Well,
He's the man.
I got a scientific kind of, or science fiction-esque idea for y'all to think about. Do you think humans will ever evolve past like just the necessary resources? Do you think that we can be, combined with AI in some way and just be like, okay, see y'all later, and then just kind of disappear evolutionary-wise, and then let people forget like we are a species with a very short memory, and then we'd kind of go back to the Stone Ages, and then see, later on, all this stuff up on the moon whenever we evolve, like to see it again? What do you think?
I'm sure there's a sci-fi novel about that. It sounds like a good one if there isn't one out there.
There is one.
I'll get AI to write it.
Time Machine.
Yeah?
Well, AI, the movie AI is pretty much that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what everybody's been saying, including Arthur C. Clarke again, and probably him first, is that our technology is going to outlive us.
Yeah.
When we start building AI that can self-replicate, it's going to leave us behind.
Yeah. Howl's
And maybe
gonna be
not
up
in
there
a
on
bad
the-
way. The movie AI is not great, but its end game is pretty profound and pretty touching. I won't spoil it for anybody, but it happens, 10,000 years into the future.
Skynet is inevitable.
Yeah,
Hopefully
but
it's
the
not
little toy child that's an artificial intelligence survives humanity by into the next ice age, and aliens revive him, and it's pretty cool. It's a cool concept.
That's awesome.
And that is the end of the movie, so I've spoiled it for everybody.
I was going to say, one thing I was going to mention, since we started the show, just happened like yesterday, I believe. We did launch, and this is something we should have an entire show about, is we launched a mission to the sun. It's called Aditya L1. So it's going to be in the kind of like the Parker probe that is up there. NASA has sent.
You guys, India did that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yesterday.
Yeah. What a 1-2 punch, man! You guys are just you guys are
Yeah.
all over the world stage right now. Good on you.
Yeah, hopefully it will get there. So remember when this is one thing Conley loves talking about, like flares, solar flares and
Solar
stuff,
flares,
right?
yeah.
So this is one of the things, like along with Parker probe, they're going to study the sun's corona to figure out how the sun's corona changes right before a flare happens, so that we could predict that. And we should definitely have a show about sun's corona is like 1 million kilometers away from the sun's surface. Sun's surface has a temperature of 5,000 degrees Celsius, right? And if you have a campfire, if you move away from the campfire, it feels cold, right? So if you go away from the sun's surface, it starts heating up. At 1 million kilometers away from the sun, it becomes 1 million degrees Celsius. Sun's surface is 5,600 degrees Celsius.
Interesting. Well,
So
it's colder.
Anirban, I
Yes.
only have one question about that.
yeah.
How many degrees in Fahrenheit is that, and how many miles above the surface of the sun are we talking?
Good question.
7. So if you divide 1 million kilometers by 1.6,
I am totally joking. I could care less.
Can we
Move on.
check another
rupees.
another rupee? Could you have like a 200 rupee?
Let me check.
No, that's so cool. Well,
Subscribe.
we'll see y'all next week at Science Nights in the Morning. Having a good time today. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks for listening to this episode of Science Nights in the Morning. Be sure and follow us on Patreon for exclusive gear and uncut episodes. Check out the latest science articles on our Facebook page and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast listening app. And if you got a question, we'll join the discussion. Hit the hotline at 432-217-1983 and record your message. We couldn't do this without you, and thank you so much for listening each and every week. That's Science Nights in the Morning with a K, and we'll see you next time.